Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Colleen Marshall, and I am thrilled to once again be hosting the Chamber's CEO Insight Series, and I am very excited to be talking this morning to Denise DeLong, who is the CEO of Singleton Construction. And Denise, I have to start with the first question before we go any farther. We are doing this obviously remotely because of COVID-19. How has COVID-19 affected the way you are doing business and making decisions about your future?
Wow, that's a big question. With construction, obviously you have to work on site. You can't work remotely and do construction. So through this entire time, we've had, I call them warriors, traveling across the country doing construction work because most of our customers were considered essential businesses. So Walmart, Targets, Dollar Generals, etc. So the majority of our programs kept going through this entire time. So I've had folks traveling all across the country doing projects. So as far as the work, it has continued. There's lots of changes as far as how you try to keep people safe, with masks and cleaning, etc. So which requires a lot of safety procedures and changes related to that. But in general, it's been fairly business as normal with just changes for safety. And so we've kind of continued, we've been blessed to continue through this.
Yeah, a lot of us have worked from the very beginning, but we're seeing a lot of people who are not lucky, fortunate enough to be doing that. Everybody's lives have changed. Obviously, we're talking by Zoom today, so I imagine you're doing a lot of Zoom meetings.
We are doing a lot of Zoom meetings, and with our business, we advertise 39 states. And so we're used to doing work remotely. So we've been doing Zoom meetings for an extended period of time, but not to the extent that we're doing them now, with travel extremely limited. So yeah, now this is our lives.
Let's go back in time to the start of Singleton Construction. I understand your mom was one of the founders, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. That's
what
correct.
year was that? And it had to be at a time when it was very unusual for a woman to be doing that. Tell me how this all started.
Well, my mom, they actually started doing construction, she and Chris Singleton, back in the 90s, and ended up being approached by Walmart to start doing subcontract work with Walmart. And so they started initially subcontracting, and then slowly but surely over the years turned into a general contractor. But back in that time, my mom was the traveling superintendent. She actually worked with the crews just because it was harder to work with the management of the customer, just because there was a female aspect of that. So she pretty much stayed in the fields, which is kind of contrary to what you would think. So she stayed in the fields doing the trade work where it was more acceptable for her to be. And then over the years, they did sub work and eventually became a general contractor.
What made your mom be attracted to the construction industry? I mean, I think you probably learned it from her, but what inspired her to take that step?
Well, construction is, it's a very difficult field. And so there's a lot of problem solving related to the field, as well as there's a very strong people component to that. And I think my mom is a wonderful problem solver, as well as she loves people. So she really thrived on that environment of working with teams. And I, also in the same way, I love working with teams and I love working with, problems. So I think that the field really lended itself to some of my mom's assets.
Well, obviously she knew what she was doing, and obviously you know what you were doing, but people don't start out having a contract with a company the size of Walmart.
No.
So what was the impetus? How did she take, this small startup and end up, you said she was a subcontractor for Walmart, but how do you even engage a company the size of a Walmart?
It's the same thing that I've had to do. It's that you start small and you just keep building and building and building and building. And the more you get to know and the more you get to experience, the more work, the more customers etc. So it's like any business, right? When you start small and you slowly build up. And that's what she did. And that's the same thing when I took over. We were 100% Walmart. So Walmart was my only customer, which is a fantastic customer to build off of. But I still had to build off of that one customer.
And you have really built off of that customer. Take me through your start in this business. Were you just, did you find it appealing because you knew that was what your mother was doing? Or, you know, this isn't something you learn overnight. There's
No.
so many levels of construction. My husband is a home remodeler, and I hear about it, but not on the level that you're on. So how did you first realize maybe this is something that will be my life too?
Well, I kind of have a different start than probably what some people have, but my mom got sick. And so when my mom got sick, she was the lifeblood behind the company. And so when she got sick, it was either I come in to help or not. And it was my mom's livelihood. That's what was taking care of my mom. And so initially, because I had a different career and my career was planned and I was well down that path. And so when she initially approached me, I thought, no, that, you know, construction wasn't where I had planned on going. And then I started to feel bad. And then I started to think about, how's my mom going to survive? This is her livelihood. So I got involved. And I often say that if I would have realized what I was stepping, and I don't say this not as a blessing, right? But if I would have realized the path I was heading down, I wouldn't have had the courage to head down that path. And I can remember shortly after I started, maybe 6 months, that I was sitting on a bench in front of a Walmart in their vestibule, and I had the big old 5-inch stack of specs and this set of prints laying on my lap, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into, and can I really do this, right? But again, it's one of those things that once you've started down that path, and of course I was taking care of my mom, and so when you're taking care of your family, you can't give up, right? You just keep plugging down that road, and I think that's a part of what got me through. I remember at one point we'd had a really bad struggle, and my mom was like, Denise, you can stop. You can give up if you wanted, you can stop. And I just said, no, there's no way. I'm not giving up. I'm going to continue heading down this path. And so it's a little bit different beginning, but that's why I keep going.
What career path did you walk away from?
I got my undergrad in supply chain management, and then had spent the first 14 years of my career in manufacturing and was in logistics, and which, construction is manufacturing. It's just a highly complicated product. So I think that the path that I had picked lended itself really well to construction. But I was down the logistics. I love supply chain management.
Well, have you ever thought you've taken a path that you didn't intend? Do you ever regret that you took that path?
I had the last company I worked for, the owner had told me, this is probably about year 5 into working at Singleton, and I was making some type of comment, and he had said, Denise, this is your career path. This is where you're going, and this is where you're at. And it took me a while for this to become my destiny, and once it did, there's no question that I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be, but it took me a while to adjust to that. And construction is, and I'm not trying to be negative about construction, but I was in a very professional corporate America working environment, and I came into construction, and construction in certain cases can be extremely unprofessional. And so I had a culture shock, definitely, walking from those environments to the construction environment. And so it took me some time also to build the company so that I had more professional relationships, I had more professional customers, etc. But yeah, it definitely, there's no question I'm where I'm supposed to be, but it wasn't a straight path. The line was probably in multiple different directions at different times.
Well, you can't build this career until you take that first step. So when you show up, so here, your mother, well known to the employees, running the business, doing it successfully, working for a company the size of Walmart, all of a sudden she's sick, you show up. Was there resentment from any of the employees? Like, hey, who does she think she is coming in here telling us what to do? she doesn't know what she's doing right now. Did you get any kind of pushback, or did you feel pushback or resentment?
Yeah, my mom and I are, even though I said we're both problem solvers and we both like working with people, we are also very different. So what would take my mom, a week to make a decision, I'll make in about 5 seconds. And so I work much more quickly than my mom did, as well as I had a different task. I had to build a company. And so I really had to work quickly and did a little bit less of the touchy feely hugs, kisses, right, to people. So I was different, as well as what happened when I came in. So I came in April, and in November, Walmart completely changed their construction program 100%. Literally, there was nothing that was similar in how they ran the construction program. The mechanics of building were the same, but how they ran it completely changed. And so what happened was a lot of the employees felt like it was Denise that was changing everything. And it took me probably a couple years before I really convinced everybody that this isn't a Denise change, this is a Walmart change, and that we have to change the way we're working if we're going to continue to keep that customer. So yeah, there were some bumps there as well. But the great part about it is that my mom has always backed me, even though my mom backed out really quickly. So I was pretty much primarily on my own once I started, but every single time my mom backed me. So like they go and complain to her, and she'd always be like, no, I'm supporting Denise. You need to understand what's behind this, etc. So, but yeah, there were definitely some bumps.
Well, I have to say, I think that would be tough for anyone, for any man to take over from, a company that he hadn't been in. But I would think in the construction field, when it is so rare to have women in positions of power, for you to come in and be the boss under those circumstances with a changing work environment, changing work rules, did you believe that it was tougher because you were a woman?
Colleen, I think about that question because I get asked that a lot, and I don't know what it's like to be a man. All I know is what it's like to be me. And so I just know that I try really hard, and that none of it's ever easy. But I don't expect it to be easy. So I think, yeah, if you really dug into it, I'm sure there are some challenges there, but I just haven't allowed myself to give up. And I've tried, even though I've not been successful 100% of the time, heaven only knows, at providing a fantastic product. But I've always felt like that if I do a really good job, or Singleton does a really good job, and we provide a really strong product to our customers, everybody wants their life easier. I don't care if it's a male or female construction manager, they don't want stress in their life, and they want somebody to give them a good product. So as long as Singleton gives them a good product, that customer doesn't care if it's a male or female. And that's what I've stood behind. And if there is what I call a good old boy network with a particular customer, I just stay away from it. And I just don't choose to work with that customer.
I imagine, though, that along the way, any woman will tell you, certainly any woman in my age group will tell you that they've heard misogynist or gender-based comments along the way as they tried to build their career, in any career. Mm-hmm. Have you heard those comments, whether it's from customers or employees along the way?
I haven't heard it a lot, believe it or not. And I think, part of it is that, and this isn't, I'm not trying to toot my horn at all. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm very bold, and I'm very honest and upfront about things at all times. And I think that has really lended it to that people kind of know where I stand, right? And they know where they can push me, where they can't push me. And yeah, there's been comments, and I think probably, more of the comments I've heard have been from subcontractors, like I'll have a person, lose your phone number, or, or lose my number, whatever negative comments. And so I would say, I would see that more from the subcontractor base than I would from the customers, and as well as from my peers. I have a really wide network of other general contractors that have been incredibly gracious to me my entire career. So I think that, obviously there's some of them, but again, it's like anything, you just can't focus on it, because as soon as you focus on any of that, it's like you start to question or doubt what your capabilities are. So you kind of accept it and you move forward.
Let's talk about how you grew this company. You know, you mentioned when you joined, Walmart was your customer. And I think if you talk to CEOs, you know, they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. What made you decide it's time to move beyond this part of our business model to look outward? And how do you go about finding those other major customers? I imagine there's a lot of envy in the industry for where you have positioned your company.
Yeah, and I don't have enough time to explain the story. There was an event that happened at Singleton that my mom was really leery, believe it or not, at finding new customers. I knew that we needed new customers. Matter of fact, that was one of the reasons why I was leery about working for Singleton, was because of just one customer. And so I knew right out of the gate that my goal was going to be to want to diversify and add customers, but my mom wasn't so sure about that. And so we had an event that happened that it was rectified, but it was an issue with Walmart. And so when that happened, my mom became a believer that, you know, yes, we need other customers. And, you know, Colleen, I can't quite explain how some of this stuff has happened. And I'll give you an example. You know, we picked up, you know, one of the first customers we picked up was Dollar General, and they're still one of our biggest customers today. And I've had the head of construction at Dollar General tell me multiple times that he gets general contractors call him every single day wanting to work for Dollar General. And so it's persistence. It's, you know, I've had salespeople that have worked for me over the years, but some of them, you know, like a Target, a Dollar General, some of them I've been personally involved with bringing on board, and it takes persistence, it takes networking, and it takes time. But I look at it as and I don't mean this to be money focused, but every single time we pick up, like a Target was a customer we picked up last year, it's like winning the lottery. And I say that just because we have a repeat business model. And so our goal is to work for Target for the next 10 years, next 15, next 20 years. And so these are huge opportunities that we pick up when we get these new customers. But it just takes time. It takes networking. It takes, you know, finding out who the right people are, and then, you know, having that right discussion with them when you meet them. So it's I don't want to say it's luck, because it's not luck, but to me, there's an element to, like, oh my gosh, why are we getting some of these opportunities?
You know, you are obviously very determined. You're very personable. Is it easy for you when you are going after a customer like you did last year with Target to let someone else take the lead on that? Or do you feel like you're the face of the company? You have to be involved in those negotiations. You have to be the networking leader. You know, how much of it is you? How much of it is trusting your staff?
I think it's a combination. So Target, just to give you an idea, I started calling on Target about 8 years ago. So it took us 8 years to land that account. And part of it was me, and then part of it was a salesperson, and then part of it was another general contractor that I'm friends with out in California that made me an introduction to a new director. And so it's not just Singleton, you know, another general contractor, a peer helping, and a salesperson, and myself as well, because I'm normally always involved when we get to the point where we're going to be having presentations or discussions with that customer. I will always be involved with those discussions. So I think it's a combination, as well as, you know, with some of my directors have amazing experience, and so they're always part of that. So it's definitely a team effort. I definitely like to be involved, and our customer wants me involved, because, you know, with construction, there's always problems. It's never going to be perfect, and they need to know that I'm backing it, that they know that whatever happens, that Denise is there and she's going to do whatever it takes to get that project done. And so they want me there. They want me to participate.
Let's talk about how this company has grown. You know, you mentioned that, you know, used to be just Walmart. From the time that you came on board, employees, customers, number of states, explain to me how you've taken this company to a different level.
Well, I was the first employee. We had all of the people that worked with us when I joined were subcontractors. So I was the first official employee, and it just takes time. And I feel like I was slower at building Singleton than what a lot of other people would be, because I was protecting my mom. So I was highly conservative. And it's, you know, when you're taking care of, when this is the source that's feeding your family, then you're more cautious. And so I was highly conservative, and I really think that that slowed, as well as when I took over, it was in 2006 and we were heading into the recession. And so
Wow.
by 2008, our margins had dropped about 200%. So our margins had tanked. And so I had to keep us, it was a survival mode basically for years. And the great part about that, though, is I didn't know anything other than that. So I wasn't part of construction when margins were great and business was great. And so I went into it conservative and I came out of it conservative, and we're debt free. I'm very averse to debt, which has also made us slower to grow. So I think that I'm very slow compared to a lot of people, but you know, being debt free and you know, just plugging it away slowly but surely. But you know, as you add, every single time you get a new team member that's strong, you're building your business. And so I have just had to do it, team member after team member after team member after team member, you know, sub after sub after sub, customer after customer, state after state. And so you just literally, you peck away at it and you slowly build it up.
How many states are you in now?
We advertise 39, but for the last, this would be the 4th year in a row, we've been in at least 30 states every year.
You say advertise. Explain to me how that works in the construction industry. It's not like we're going to see an ad on TV saying, hey, we can come and build you a Target. You know,
Yeah.
what kind of advertising? How do you reach out to the people who you need to, you know, buy into your services?
Yeah, and I don't know that it's anything different than really, you know, the local market. I'm not very active in the local market. I do want to become more involved with the local market, but you know, you take Jim Smith from Elford, I'm friends with him, and we talk about business development. And you know, if you're in Central Ohio and you're looking to do construction and you say the word Elford, everybody knows Elford, everybody knows Turner, everybody knows those names. And so it's no different in nationwide general contracting and the type of business that we do, that your name becomes well known. And we do it differently. We do it through, there's different conferences that we attend, different networking events that we attend, because there's associations for like shopping center construction, retail construction, those types of things have events. You go to those events and you meet people and you network and you talk to people, and slowly but surely your name becomes more well known. And you know, I knew that we had moved the ball down the court when we were at an event. This was almost 3 years ago, and we sat down with Whole Foods, and they didn't even ask us about our resume. They didn't even ask us about our background. They automatically assumed that we could do their construction. And of course,
Wow.
we're not to the level of other nationwide general contractors that are in this space, but we are becoming more well known.
So is Whole Foods a customer now?
They aren't, believe it or not. When we got certified with them, shortly after that, Amazon purchased them. And so they've been a little bit in the flux since then. So we've not gone back and tried to regenerate that relationship yet.
So on any given day, even now during the midst of this pandemic, how many projects do you have that are actively being built around the country?
We do, this year, we'll probably do 1,500 projects, maybe even a little more than that. And that's because I have two sides of my business. I have a side, well, we don't do any ground up construction. It's all interior. We'll do new stores in existing space, what we call tenant improvements, but we do a lot of special projects. And so like Dollar General remodels, we do 6 Dollar General remodels a week. And so those projects just flow from week to week to week, and they'll just travel around different locations. And really all of our models are that way. So like a Walgreens, you know, we might do 100 different Walgreens stores. So we'll just travel around and do the different projects in different states. But because of the type of construction we do a lot higher volumes than what other general contractors do.
Okay, so I'm fascinated when you say we do 6 Dollar General a week. You mean you go in and within a week completely redo the store?
Yeah, and we call it, and this is, I can't tell you what I call it because it's not appropriate, but
No, go ahead, tell us.
and
We won't tell
like
anybody.
it's we call it lipstick on a pig, and I'm not saying Dollar General's a pig by any stretch of the imagination, but you go in and it can be, you're repairing ceiling tile, you're repairing the flooring, you're putting in new doors, you're cleaning, you're power washing, you're painting. So you're basically giving it a refresh. You're not going in and gutting it down to the studs, but you're doing a refresh. And most of our customers, really all of our customers, have some type of a program that they do to maintain their facilities. And so it could be an extensive remodel where it's millions of dollars, or it could be a light touch where it might only be a refresh, or it could be, hey, like Walmart, they're adding their click list, their online pickup locations. So they'll go around the country and they'll just add those, and you can do those as special projects. So it just depends on the project.
I'm just fascinated how you're juggling a lot of balls, and some of them are probably on fire. So on a typical day, what are the problems? You've got to be getting phone calls from around the country, or are you so high up in the organization now that you're not hearing those day-to-day supply problems or neighbor problems, or what's your level of being in touch with all of those projects?
Well, now I'm to the point where if I'm in touch with the project, there's a problem. And so I've built up the infrastructure. And again, that's part of growing a business, right? It's part of scaling up the business, as to build that support, that leadership team below you. So you're not doing that. But unfortunately, we have a program that we're struggling with right now that we're not doing a good job. We're recovering, but we took on too much work, and then with COVID, stuff got some delayed with this customer, and then we had too many projects. So I was actually out on a job site for a couple weeks, day by day, just because, again, that same thing, the customer wants to know I care. The customer wants to know I'm part of that solution, and then I'm struggling, that if Singleton's struggling, I'm out there struggling with them. But that's not normal. We normally have about one project a year where I'll get involved because we're struggling, but I have a fantastic group of I have leadership team underneath me and a fantastic group of project managers. So unless the customer's really upset, I'm not involved, and thank goodness that isn't real frequent anymore. So
what's the percentage of the people doing these projects who are your employees, as opposed to subcontractors who you're hiring, but you're not responsible for their benefits and so forth?
It depends on the program. So with Walmart and Dollar General are our largest programs and highly repeatable. So when that happens, then we'll hire employees. And that's just because, if you think about it, when you have an employee, and our construction projects are short, our projects aren't 2-year-long schools that you're building. They could be 6-week projects, 8-week projects, a week-long project. So you have to have some type of a revenue stream before you can hire employees. So wherever we have a reoccurring revenue stream that supports employees, we hire employees. And then outside of that, we'll hire subcontractors. But in almost all cases, when it comes to mechanicals, like your plumbing, your electric, HVAC, refrigeration, you're going to use subcontractors, because we don't have those types of licenses. So it's a mixture. It depends on the customer, it depends on the revenue stream. And then obviously some trades, we always subcontract.
I know that you have been honored by women's organizations, for instance, the National Association of Women Business Owners, NAWBO. There are a lot of women who look up to you and think, that's pretty high up. We hear statistics every year. There aren't many women sitting in that seat. Do you feel a responsibility because you are in that seat and you are the one making the decisions and being responsible for so many people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you talk about NAWBO, which is the women's association that I'm involved with, I have actually been able to be mentored and mentor, right, other women businesses. There's a group that I participate there that we meet monthly, and just some fantastic women-owned businesses that I'm always learning from. And so, yeah, I think, there's always that sense of responsibility that, you want to mentor and you want to help, other people. There's not a lot of other women in construction but if I do ever run into them, I'm always like, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. Do you, if you ever need anything, by all means, reach out to me. But within my industry, besides having employees, I mean, we have a lot of women employees. And I think one of the advantages of me being a woman business owner in construction is I don't look at it as a man's job or a woman's job. I don't look at it, I look at it as whoever I can develop to fulfill that role, regardless of what your sex, your race, any of that. You're open. You can do whatever you want to with this role. And we give lots of people opportunities within Singleton.
I know that in the trade industry, in the construction trade, really even in manufacturing jobs that the governor has talked about around the state, it's not always easy to have a work pool. There aren't a lot of schools now that are developing trade employees. How has the workforce been for you here in Ohio and at these construction sites around the country? Do you have the people you need with the skill set that you want?
No, you don't ever have everybody that you need. We turn away, millions of dollars of work every single year because we don't have the people to do that work. And with construction, I'm always very cautious about, you can stretch a little bit, but if you stretch too much, you're going to fail. And, with these like I talked about how difficult it is to get a target. Well, you don't stretch and fail a target because you're losing a revenue source for, whatever the next 20 years, right? So you have to be really cautious, but no, it's really difficult. And I think it's one of our biggest threats. And part of it is because we are even more vulnerable to it because we have people traveling all over the country, and that's a dying breed that, people don't want to travel. And so even though I say that, we are having some success at finding some younger people that are coming out of high school, because we can train people really quickly and they can have fantastic roles, but we might only keep them for 3 or 4 years, right? You're not going to have someone we call road warriors where, like, for example, one of the superintendents that worked for my mom still works for us today and has been on the road all of those years. And
wow.
So, but that's a dying breed. We're not going to be able to find those people anymore. And so I think, the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have some of these, what we call our road warriors, are going to start retiring. And we just have to get really great at training people and cycling people through the organization, just because we're not going to be able to keep them for as long as we used to. It's definitely a problem.
Yeah. Do you need support from like trade schools, from government programs, training workers? Is there something that should be done that's not being done?
Well, I think there's a lot of construction's been busy. The economy's been great. And so what happened was when we went through the recession, that we lost a lot of the construction labor, and a lot of those people went into other industries, and some of them didn't come back. And so, but what's happened is, as the economy has recovered and construction has gotten busy, a lot of those organizations have started to bring back, well, they have for a while now, but been bringing back programs, whether it be, apprentice type programs. So there's definitely a lot more activity in that area for sure. One of the things that the chamber has is a workforce development committee, and we've had lots of discussions around that. And that, I think the thing I struggle with the most is that there's so many different people trying to, I would say organizations trying to develop workforce, but it doesn't seem like there's a combined effort. And maybe that's not even logistically possible, but it doesn't seem like there's a combined effort to get young people interested in the trades. And not just young people. One of the great things about construction is they're high pay jobs. So these are not jobs where they're making minimum wage. And we talk about increasing or, improving people's, living. Construction is a perfect place to do that because we can pay people really well. And so to me, I think that there needs to be more encouragement in general to get kids interested, I say kids, that sounds bad, young people interested, and to get people that are in other areas where they're not making a living wage to get them in the construction field. Construction's similar to like what college, if you think about, you go to college 4 years to learn something. In college, construction's the same thing. You have to commit some time. So is that 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? To be a master electrician in some states is 10 years. It's like getting your doctorate. So you have to commit some time to really get to those levels. But once you get to those levels, those wages are incredibly good wages. So I'm going to say there's lots of activity going around to increase people into the trades, but it just seems like there's not a combined effort. And I'm spending too much time in this. I'm sorry, Colleen, but the numbers are scary. And, Walmart took us into a room, this has been about 4 years ago now, and showed us the numbers. They had a chief economist present this to us, and they showed the numbers that were exiting the construction field and the numbers that were coming in. And at some point down the road, we're going to be in such a shortage where you're not going to be able to get a plumber. And you hear this story, right? You'll say, hey,
Right.
I've been trying to get some work done in my house and I can't find anybody. So I believe that a point in time down the road, we're going to have such a severe shortage where everybody's going to be paying attention to this because we're not going to be able to build things. So.
Well, certainly I would think that more high school programs would start encouraging this. There was a time when everyone said, you've got to go to college, you've got to go to college. I'm the daughter of an electrician, and
Yeah.
I know that that's a skill set in itself. It was, it was his life. He was a master electrician.
Yes.
So at some point, don't you think there has to be a more formalized encouragement for young people who are in high school, maybe thinking about what their next step is?
I absolutely agree. But this is going to start with the family. It will. And, the people that I know that are young and in the trades were at some point exposed to something at a young age that made them interested in that career. And they know that college isn't, you hear the statistics of kids that drop out of college and it's scary, right? It's a huge percentage of kids that drop out and then they try to track where they go and where do they go, right? But I absolutely agree. And I don't know how we do this, right? Because, and I don't want to speak, I can't really say everything that I feel right now, but regardless, it starts in the family and we have to change the impression of construction. And we have to, I maybe would have had that same impression, I don't know, 20 years ago, right? But we have to change it so that it's acceptable career for a career path for people. And in some cases, you look at where I'm at, right? And if I was in my same job before, would I have made the same amount of money? No, and not even close. And so in some cases, if they do well in those careers, they're going to make a lot more money than people that went to college. So we have to change that stigmatism, but it's got to start in the home. It does. And we have to tell them that this is a fantastic path to go down.
You obviously have done very well. You've taken your mother's successful company and grown it again. I imagine others in your industry try to emulate your business model. Is it something they can copy? Is it something that other people try to figure out what you've done to get this level of success?
Construction has a really low barrier to entry. And so we're always struggling with newer people coming into construction that may or may not be able to do as good a job as what we're doing. So that's never ending. And yes, people can, we compete against people that do very similar activities that we do, but the customers that I go after are really large customers. So one of the things I look for are really large construction programs. So take Walmart. Walmart has one of the biggest construction programs in the country. So they're doing thousands of projects every single year. So we go in there and let's say we do 25 projects. So 25 out of 3,000. Well, there's the rest of those that they have to go to other general contractors. So I don't really care that Walmart goes to those other general contractors to get to the rest of their program, but I'm going to protect my ground on my 25 projects that I want to get every single year. We are always facing people that do what we do, but we have to do a great job. And if we continue to do a great job, that customer will continue to work with us, even though I might have a competitor alongside me that does the exact same thing that I do.
I imagine when you are doing projects over and over and over again, it might become rote. If you're doing Walgreens and Walmart, doing the same kinds of projects over and over, how do you protect quality control? How do you make sure that the people who work for you don't get lackadaisical and doing the same old thing? How do you make sure that every project is as good as you want it to be?
Yeah, that's the question of the decade, Colleen. That's part of our growing pains, right? That's part of going from using people to using process to using systems. And as we've gotten bigger, we have to rely on more technology. We have to rely on different tools to support that. And so, yeah, so it's just a matter of scaling your business from it just being people to using systems and using processes. And now too, with technology, there's so many different ways that you can monitor job sites too, not just being physically there in person, whether it be, FaceTime or using 360 camera type equipment, whatever that tool is, there's ways to monitor those sites. So it's a combination of things, but part of that change is then making sure that so you go from auditing people to auditing the process and auditing the technology. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So it just, then you have to, so literally we had to make that transition from just people to process technology. Now we're in that spot where how do we manage that technology also to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do? And there's been bumps. Definitely, but I really believe that we're entering that next stage where we're gonna have those platforms to be able to grow, to make even another growth step.
When you say process technology, how has that changed even in the time that you've been with the company?
Oh, well, it's hard for me to. We started really getting more involved with technology probably about 6 years ago. So whereas a lot of businesses have been using technology for a lot more years than what we have. But, we started with clouds, right? And that was, again, a thing for a lot of people. But, all of everything we have is on a cloud. Because we're traveling all over the country, we need to have access to information all the time. So I think that, like using Box, we've been using Box for probably 6-7 years now. And so some of that was newer technology available to people, as well as, like FaceTimes, your Smart Sheets is one of the tools that we use. So some of them are newer tools too, right? So I think it's a matter of, we've been looking for technology and really good timing, because there's newer tools that are available. I don't know if I explained that right.
Yeah. I think I get where you're going. Obviously, this is beyond my knowledge base. I do want to ask you, though, how would you describe your management style?
Very direct. I move really, really quickly, make decisions really quickly. It's, the people, we're in a people business. And so I recognize that I have to treat people really well, that we have to grow people, we have to develop people, and that, we have to care about people. And, that's for everything. That's our customers, right? That's our subcontractors. That's our, any of our trading partners. And so I think it's a matter of, there's toughness there. And you have to have that in construction. I don't know how you could lead a construction company and not be tough. I really don't. So there's a toughness, but there's also that caring, and as well as being able to move really quickly and make decisions really quickly.
A lot of people, I think, would want to emulate your style. And I know we are partnered with CEO Magazine, the Chamber is, for this presentation. And the editor, Katie Smith, is standing by because she has, from her perspective, a question that she would like to ask you. So Katie, if you can pop on, we are ready for your question. Hi, Katie.
Hi. I've been enjoying your conversation so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Denise, you are solidly in the retail industry with where you guys do your work. And that's really a fascinating industry right now, not only because of all the disruption that's happening with technology and with Amazon, but also with COVID. So what do you see happening in retail right now?
Katie, it's crazy. It really is. And for a while I went through a period because we're really heavy in grocery. And so I felt like we were a little more insulated from what's happening with retail because of that. But grocery, over the last few years, right? We all know what's happened with grocery and online grocery. So things are changing, and they're changing really, really quickly. I think that with COVID, what happened was the retail industry was a little bit behind in addressing some of the behaviors of our population. And so COVID escalated that, and it really, I think, bubbled up some weaknesses and required people like Target. Target sheltered their remodel program because they needed to make some changes to their construction and recognized that and wanted to wait to continue until they had those changes in place. So I think COVID escalated some things that needed to be done. With me, there's some advantage, or with Singleton, there's some advantages, because if you think about all the changes that are happening, if your space is not maintained, you're not going to be in business. People can think of, and I'm not trying to be mean, but think of Sears, right? Think of Kmart. But if you don't maintain those facilities, that at some point you're going to die. Well, that's right up our alley. That's perfect for Singleton, because that's what we do, is we refresh your spaces. But there's still that risk that at how far is this going to go? What's it going to look like in 10 years? I can't even envision what that's going to look. So there's a risk. So, with us, we're going to look at restaurants. You're going to try to diversify into other industries that can help balance this. So you're not so retail heavy that, depending on what it looks like in 10 years, what will that look like?
Well, before we let you go, Denise, what is your advice to others maybe thinking about getting into this industry? What's the one thing you want people to know about what you do and the lasting impact you think your business will have?
Well, I think that, building it's exciting, right? It's exciting, just like manufacturing. It's exciting that you can see your product. You drive by a Walmart and you're like, oh, I worked on that project, or, oh, look, I did that. And so there's, to me, a lot of pride in your work that you can actually see, you can see that product. So I think that's really exciting. It's a very, very difficult field, just because it's such a complicated field, and you're dealing with human beings. And when you're dealing with complication and human beings, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of variability to the process. So that can be challenging. So you have to go into it knowing what a challenge it is, but as far as the impact that you can have is huge, as well as, I know with me personally, running a construction company and trying to run it by caring about people and building that platform that you're trying to make a difference has been really, really exciting, because a lot of people don't have that with other construction companies. And so you can make a difference that way. So I would just say, you got to get ready. It's a hard industry, but there's a lot of gratification to it, and there's a lot of challenge and a lot of change. So I think it's a really exciting field.
Well, it has been great talking to you. We really appreciate you taking so much time, letting me pick your brain. I feel like I have learned a lot about construction in this hour, or at least about the people who run it. And you're obviously doing a great job. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And for those of you watching, remember, you can get more information at about the chamber at columbus.org. And we hope that you'll tune in for future events. Denise, it's been a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.